Greetings and welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. And today we are starting up yet another month with another very exciting topic, which I forgot to mention last week because, full disclosure, full transparency here, I didn't have the topic yet at the time, but the topic, as you probably would have guessed from the wonderful thumbnail here, and I'm assuming you saw the title of the video and you clicked on it, speeches. The Doctor is very famously known for making these epic, grandiose speeches that really speak from the hearts and capture the hearts and minds of the audience. And here to discuss these wonderful speeches here with me, a very special guest, very happy to have this person back here, Discount Kaiser. Frenchie. How are you doing, sir?
I'm not Kaiser. I'm Gucci. I'm trying to emulate a bit of the Gucci with this. I'm really good. Thank you for having me back. I'm sorry for being late, but I'm here, so I'm ready to talk some Doctor Who, my man. I'll be honest, I don't remember any speeches. I don't even remember what I said 5 minutes ago, okay? So this is going to be interesting. I'll be reacting to the emotion it gives and, knowing the Doctors, who they are, but I can't remember shit when it comes to the speeches. So you're going to have to help me, man.
Well, it's a good thing that I took all the speeches from tonight and I wrote them on a Word document. So
you're a fucking champion.
Right in front of me, so we can be all ready. But before that, as you probably know, we got the birthday section. We got to talk about the birthdays of all the people who were born somewhere between the 30th of May and the 5th of June. And I got to be honest, this week is stacked with people. So stacked that Frenchie left just with the sheer magnitude of people that are in the birthday section this week. But honestly, we could do the entire episode just talking about these people. And that's after I filtered out so many people. But let's get this show on the road. Let's get it started. Starting us off here on the 30th of May, we have Mr. Mark Sheppard. Obviously, as you probably recognize him as Mr. Kenton Everett Delaware III in the opening two-parter of Season 6, The Impossible Astronaut and the Day of the Moon. Also on the 30th of May, Tracy Childs. Do you recognize her from Doctor Who?
No, my man.
Well, let me give you a hint. She was Peter Capaldi's wife in the Fires of Pompeii episode.
Oh.
However, she was also a companion of the 7th Doctor on Big Finish. A Nazi companion.
Interesting.
Did you know that the Doctor literally had a Nazi companion at one point?
Who's perfect? Thank God social media didn't exist in those times. Yeah, who's perfect?
Oh, social media, it does exist. It's Big Finish. It's 2010.
Okay, so it's a modern. Well, in that case, good to them. They were brave and had balls.
Yeah, it was a very ballsy move, but the story that they came up with was actually very well done, in my opinion. Now, on the 31st, we have Miss Linda Bellingham, as seen in this picture. Obviously, she played. Hold on, let me see if I can get the title and the name correctly. Counselor Dark Electroquister Astrid in the Trial of a Time Lord series. Obviously, she wasn't named during that time, but she didn't came back on Big Finish in the Gallifrey series as a full-on, fully fledged character and had a major role in the Time Lord Civil War event on the Big Finish side. And now also on the 31st, Mr. Reggie Yates. He played Leo Jones, the brother of Martha Jones in the 3rd season of Doctor Who, the modern series, I should say. Also on the 31st, I did say that there are a lot of people today. Miss Claudia Grant. She played Carol Ann Ford on An Adventure in Space and Time, the pseudo-biographical special about the show, and then she later came back as the character Susan Foreman on the wider range of Big Finish First Doctor adventures that came out, that was spawned, I should say, as a result of that one movie. And speaking of that one movie, on the 1st of June, Brian Cox, of course, played the iconic Sidney Newman in that special, but he also was the voice of the Elder of the Ood in David Tennant's final two-parter. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but that's freaking awesome. I love that actor.
Yeah, me too. He was. I like him mainly in X2, arguably the best X-Men movie.
And he's the actor who plays in Succession, right?
I do not watch Succession.
Yeah, I think but if it's him, I'm thinking about two because again, Memory of a Goldfish. He plays these angry people so well.
Yeah, he definitely has. Hold on, let me just put the picture. He definitely has the face for it.
It's a face that he asks you for a favor, you say yes.
Yep, yeah, no question there. Also on the first, Mr. Jonathan Pryce, who played an alternate version of the Master in The Curse of Fatal Death, the spoof video. Have you seen it, that one?
Yeah, and I was gonna say he should have been cast as, I hate to say it, as that freaking monk because he looks like a monk.
I think he could have nailed the job, but I mean, I guess someone in Doctor Who really likes you, and they never actually bring the monk back in the modern suit.
For a good reason, 50. For a good reason.
Next, we have here on the wonderful list of people we have.
I have control too, bro. Sorry.
On the first, Miss Jean Marsh. We can have an entire episode just dedicated just to her. But yeah, she was Princess Joanna in The Crusade. She later was cast as Sarah Kingdom, a kind of companion of the first Doctor. She was also Morgaine Le Fay, or Morgaine, I should say, in the episode Battlefield. And she was also married to John Pertwee. And she's also played several other roles on Big Finish. She's huge in Doctor Who. Like, she's a massive contributor on Doctor Who. Now, on the second, speaking of people who are massive contributors to Doctor Who, Mr. John Colshaw. He's primarily known for playing parody versions of the Fourth Doctor, nailing that voice, by the way. He does a perfect spot-on impression, so much so that he was actually cast as him in several different projects in Big Finish, mostly in minor roles before they brought back Tom Baker as the proper Doctor. He also played Chameleon on Big Finish. He's also played Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart on Big Finish. He's also stood in for the Third Doctor on occasion. He's great, and he's a massive contributor to Doctor Who. No questions asked. Now, this is another character. This is another actor, also on the second, that I've been wanting to show for a while, Mr. Peter Halliday. He was mainly known as Pekka in The Invasion, alongside Kevin Stoney as Tobias Vaughn, the main villain of the piece. But he's also played a Silurian. He played an alien in The Ambassadors of Death. He played another alien in Carnival of Monsters. He was in City of Death. He was in Remembrance of the Daleks. He played so many different roles and so many different Doctor Who serials from the classic era that I think he never really properly got the notification that he deserves. So I decided to give him that one in this episode. Now, on the third, we have Susanna Constantine. She played a robot version of herself in the Bad Wolf episode, where they literally had Trini and Susanna playing robot versions of themselves named Trin E and Zuzana. Are you familiar with Trini and Susanna?
But how do you find these? I'm like, at this point, you're almost going to put in the birthday of the cameraman that did one episode 25 years ago, you know?
I mean, at one point, I was considering having on the birthday of the kid that came up with the idea for the Absorbaloff.
Jesus,
but his birthday's not listed anywhere. But you never heard of Trini and Susanna?
No. I have immense gaps. I mean, I watch what I can get. It's not that easy to get in Canada. It used to be with DVDs, but now with streaming services and etc., it's not that as easy for me, anyways, to get them. So I try to get them when I can, but there's moments I have to rely on you, my man.
Well, I mean, they're huge in the UK. They're mainly, well, they have this sort of reality show where they find people off the streets and give them a wardrobe makeover. And so they
Okay.
brought them into Doctor Who as literally wardrobe makeover androids.
Interesting. No, did not never heard.
Okay. Like you said, gaps. And on the third, Mr. Ian Gelder. As seen in this picture, he was the Zelen in the episode Can You Hear Me? But he was also the voice of the Remnants in the Ghost Monument, as well as playing Mr. Decker in the 5-part series Children of Earth for Torchwood, which was one of the best sci-fi things of all time, Doctor Who or otherwise.
Very underrated among my Doctor Who friends. Not a lot of people like Torchwood among my circle. So, and I don't know why. It's darker, but it's freaking good.
Yeah, and this five-parter, masterpiece in my opinion. Just, the less said about the next season, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also on the third, Penelope Wilton. Do you know who she is?
Yes, I do. Wow, her face is familiar.
Yeah, well, it's part of the joke. You have to say it.
She's the president.
Harriet Jones, the former prime minister.
Close enough. Just move on with the joke.
You're supposed to say, yes, I know who she is. Never mind.
I know.
So
You still love me.
Yeah, I still do. On the fourth, David C. Collins. Would you believe me if I told you he's my least favorite Doctor of all time?
Wait, he was a doctor?
Yeah.
Hell,
he was the Big Finish What If series called Unbound. He played a version of the Doctor that was, shall we say, the character description was a Doctor who believes that the end justifies the means. You're willing to lie, to kill and lie about it to protect his secret.
Like a chaotic good Doctor almost. No, that's not chaotic good. It's
just chaotic. It's just bad.
But there's a system that, like, you think you're doing good, but you're actually being evil. But in your head, you're doing good. Forgot which setting that is. Anyways, but yeah, that's.
I see what you mean, but it's hard. It's hard to put in the words.
Yeah.
He also played Mordwin in Mordwin Undead, and he was also in the Robots of Death, and he was also in Revenge of the Cybermen as one of the Vogons. No relation to the Vogons from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. On the fourth, again, Miss Julie Gardner. She was a executive producer on pretty much the entirety of the Russell T Davies era, as well as most of Torchwood, and even some of the Stephen Moffat era. She's a huge executive producer on Doctor Who, and she even has a few acting credits to her name in certain factual things. On the fourth, we're almost done here. You can come back. Bradley Walsh was first cast as Odd Bob the Clown in Day of the Clown, the Sarah Jane Adventures episode, before being recast as a full-time companion of the 13th Doctor, Graham O'Brien, and arguably my favorite of the 13th Doctor's era.
Yeah, I really appreciate him. I like that that's a perspective we haven't seen in a while, if I'm not mistaken. The older white man or older man in general, and the relationship with his grandson, right?
Yes, yeah.
It was a really interesting. Still not my favorite. My favorite is, I forgot, the almost love interest of the Doctor.
Yasmin.
There you go. I like Yasmin. Can't remember her name apparently, but I like her characters. But they were really good though. Yeah,
I think the 13th Doctor is going to be remembered for not the best reasons, but I think she did have a couple of underrated companions in her time.
She was a good Doctor. Bad writing, in my opinion, but
yes,
good Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really hope it doesn't detract to have more female Doctors in the future, because it is not her fault.
Yeah, but on the flip side, we did actually have a well-written female Doctor in that era.
Yes.
And now she's getting her own Big Finish series. So the future's looking bright for female Doctors in the future.
Yes.
And we're going to end up with another white man, because on the 5th, we have Mr. Gareth Roberts, another executive producer and location manager and writer of lots and lots of different Doctor Who episodes, and a huge contributor of the modern series of Doctor Who. So after spending about 15 minutes talking just about the birthday section, that's how stacked it was today. Thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you. And now we're on to the main heavy part of today's episode, the speeches. Now, originally, I was gonna pick several speeches that I really liked before I realized that some doctors have more good speeches than others. Some doctors barely have any speech power behind them at all. So I figured that the safest bet is to just pick one, just the one speech from each doctor that I really like, and talk about it. Now
It's funny, huh? It kind of shows you what doctors had good writers and what doctors the writers were just phoning it in.
I wouldn't say phoning it in. It's just certain doctors were good at other things. Like, not every doctor was the talker or the speech maker.
Okay, so you're not seeing it as a writing issue, because for me, every doctor should have at least one good, like, amazing speech per season. Am I wrong?
Per season, yes, I agree with that. And with definitely some of them, I can't say that it was a writing issue, but there's one in particular here where, well, I'm not even going to sugarcoat. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Third Doctor was more a man of action than a man of words.
Okay, in that case, yeah, I retract, because that's an amazing team behind it. So okay, so I see what you mean. It's just certain doctors are a lot more theatrical. Certain doctors are a lot more just, I'm gonna punch you and then talk.
Yeah, and ask questions later.
Yeah.
So it was pretty tough for me to pick out to whittle down the list to just one per doctor, because again, some doctors have like 3 or 4 speeches that I really wanted to bring up. Some have just one, which was very easy for me. But we're going to start at the very beginning with the original, you might say, the first Doctor. And as you can, yeah, in my opinion, the best of the classics. Like,
it's the rare time we agree on something, 50.
Yes, you should mark the date.
Oh, it's already marked. I gold plated on my fucking wall.
Oh, okay, cool. So you thought ahead.
Yeah.
Now, you'll notice that with the exception of one, the image that I chose is actually the image from the speech that I chose to highlight. Now I'm gonna leave this picture up on the screen as I switch into my Word document here to read out the speech itself. It's the speech that he gives when he's saying goodbye to his granddaughter Susan after locking her outside of the TARDIS when she tries to run back in, and he locks her out and he refuses to let her in, and then he asks her to step back a little bit so he can see her and properly speak to her through the TARDIS scanner. And that's where he says, "During all the years I've been taking care of you, you in return have been taking care of me. Not any longer, Susan. You're still my grandchild and always will be. But now you're a woman too. I want you to belong somewhere, to have roots of your own. With David, you'll be able to find those roots and live normally like any woman should do. Believe me, your future lies with David and not with a silly old buffer like me. One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. Goodbye, Susan. Goodbye, my dear." And then he takes off in the TARDIS and leaves her behind, and she drops the TARDIS key on the floor after realizing that her grandfather is not coming back.
Yeah, and it shows like he was a wise doctor compared to like certain modern doctors that just wait until they die and replace. He saw when it was time to finish. He saw when it's time to move on, and like, this life of excitement's good, but at a point when you truly love someone, you got to let them do their own lives, and that's what he did in that speech.
Yeah, again, it's one of the rare things we agree on. Like, this speech gets a lot of hate and unnecessary backlash, in my opinion. That a lot of people are saying that the doctor just dumped her and threw her out. That's not what he did. Like, you as a parent will probably know this. the thing about being a parent is knowing to put your child's needs ahead of your own, and that's exactly what he did in that moment. And there's even a novel that even goes and further explores that with in introducing the idea that at some point the Doctor realized that he knew the Time Lords were going to catch up to them eventually, and when that happens, he knew what was going to happen, so he wanted to keep Susan safe from all of that. I mean, we saw what happened to Jamie and Zoe when the Time Lords caught up to the Doctor, and he wanted to keep Susan safe and far, far away from the Time Lord's wrath. So I think he made the right choice in doing that. Now, sadly, of course, even though he said he'd come back, he never actually did.
Sometimes you have to lie to the people you love to make sure they're okay, right?
To keep them safe.
Exactly. It's lying is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a thing that you have to do out of love.
Yeah. That's why it's called white lies. Where is my? There it is. Now, something interesting that I think is worth mentioning here. So, do you know what Susan's real name is? By the way, because obviously she picked out the name Susan to blend in on Earth. So Susan is not really her real name.
I'm not even gonna try to guess. Is that it?
You're close enough. It's Architor. Architor.
So she could regenerate and everything. She is a Time Lord technically.
Not necessarily, because in further expanded Doctor Who lore, the Doctor traveled back in time and picked her up from Gallifrey's long distant past. Before regeneration was
Okay, so they kind of blended the new Doctor's storyline that there was a time that he did not regenerate.
Yes and no. That's more or less where they picked up that idea from, but it was around the time where regeneration was introduced. The precursor to the Doctor, known as the Other, opposed Rassilon's rule, and to avoid Rassilon's wrath, he sort of exploded himself and splashed his DNA all over the Time Lord looms, which is a whole thing in and of itself. And several centuries later, he was reincarnated as the first Doctor, who traveled back in time and picked up Susan from the olden days, and she immediately recognized him as her grandfather because he was reincarnated from the DNA of the Other, who was her original grandfather. Now, that's not really the tangent I was aiming for. So, do you know what Architor means in ancient Gallifreyan?
Best pizza maker.
I mean, that's a good guess, but no.
Okay.
Rose. And we're going to move on.
Interesting.
So, the second Doctor is up next. The second Doctor, let me see if we agree on this at least. He's my least favorite of the classics. Not a bad Doctor. Not a bad Doctor by any means at all, but just out of
my second least favorite. So we're almost there. Just someone that's for me worse, and I'll tell you who later on. But we went from a grumpy old man that had a good heart to almost a man that you would find having a restraining order to schools because he can't be too close to kids. I don't know. Something's off about this guy.
Yeah. And he's being extremely playful about it.
Yes.
Like, woo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah. He's always too excited. No.
And I mean, I rewatched all of his stuff fairly recently. There's some questionable moments there.
That and it's funny moment. Flute. Like, can someone break that flute?
I don't mind the flute too much.
Really?
I mean, I don't love it, but I mean, maybe it's because I just love the sound of flute music, not counting Doctor Who at all. I just love the sound of a flute.
I just found it brought it to a cheese level he was already a cheesy character. He's already like the contrary, which is not a bad thing. But you add the flute, it's like come on, man. Like how much cheese do you need in a character?
I mean, even the other companion characters hated the flute, so you might be onto something. but he does have one really golden moment, and even though it's my least favorite Doctor, it's one of my favorite moments in Doctor Who from the Tomb of the Cybermen. Thankfully, the idiot mistake of the BBC was rectified, and all 4 parts of the serial were found, and the episode is no longer missing, and you can watch it whenever you like. But, well, unless you're, not living in the UK, but that's a side step that we're not going to get into. So yeah, the second Doctor from Tomb of the Cybermen, when he's talking to Victoria after she recently lost her father, and she asks him about his family, if he remembers them, and what he says is basically, "Oh yes, I can when I want to," and that's the point, really. I have to really want to bring them back in front of my eyes. The rest of the time, they sleep in my mind, and I forget. And so will you. Oh yes, you will. You'll find there's so much else to think about, to remember. Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting thing. That nobody in the universe can do what we're doing. And I just really like this calm, wholesome moment in an episode where they're literally surrounded by Cybermen rising from the dead, figuratively and literally.
Yeah, it's kind of like, again, contrary to his character is so goofy. This was a moment of like, yeah, we're in danger right now, but who else can say we're having this much fun? And who else can say, like, the things we've done? Accepting the realism of the moment is an interesting juxtaposition to his character. Still hate the guy.
Yeah, I mean, that moment right there is one of the good things about this Doctor, is that, yeah, he is a goofball. He's incredibly cheesy, and and a lot of the times he's kind of viewed as a coward. But in a lot of episodes, particularly the one right before this one, he uses that facade to trick his enemies. Like, he lulls them into a false sense of security, thinking that he's an easily beatable Doctor, and that's when he lays the trap on them. Doesn't always work, but the lulling is not something that I appreciate that much. But I just like that when that idea works, it works for this Doctor specifically because of how he's one of the weaker Doctors, in my opinion. Oh, okay, someone just farted.
No, it's a motorcycle, my friend.
Yeah, the motorcycle farted. That's the sound of a motorcycle farting. Don't you?
It has no stomach, 50. We're gonna have to talk after.
Yeah, that's what I was aiming for. So somehow we went from arguably the weakest Doctor to by far the strongest. Wait! I'm getting a no.
Go ahead, talk.
No, I was just going to bring up this picture to showcase the idea that this Doctor didn't necessarily have lots of great speeches. He was more known for the one-liners, which is you're seeing several of them in this image right here.
My no is you're the greatest Doctor comment.
I said one of the strongest.
One of the strongest. Okay, so you're not putting him as the strongest.
No, I think some of the modern Doctors outdo what he does, but you'll find that a lot of the other Doctors, both before him and others, and the one after him, consider him to be one of their best in story. That is, in storyline, they consider him to be the best version of themselves.
I know Capaldi does, because he kind of like his dress, and it was like the way he dresses is a bit influenced by him, but. Okay, I'll reserve my judgment for now.
Yeah, there's an image out there somewhere of Capaldi literally wearing the exact same velvet jacket worn by him, and the smile on his face is just infectious. But going back into this image right here, like I said, the one-liners. I reverse the polarity of the neutral flow. Courage isn't just a matter of not being frightened. It's being afraid and doing what you have to do anyway. A straight line may be the shortest distance between 2 points, but it's by no means the most interesting. So yeah, stuff like that. But he also finding the speech for this guy was tough, not the least of which because when you actually do get a proper speech from him, and again, one of my favorite moments from Doctor Who of all time, it's an incredibly long one, and it's more of him telling a story rather than a speech. And sadly, that was the only one I couldn't find the transcript for. So I had to literally type the whole thing, and that's probably what took me so long to get this show made.
His lines sound like a fortune cookie. That's pretty much it.
I mean, there was a lot of Asian inspiration during his reign.
But yeah, I mean, he is the best of short quotes. You know, like I said, he was a man of action. In my opinion, even a storyline, a man of too much action. Like, I would have loved a bit more cerebral stuff from him, even though there are some compared to other doctors. I think they went in a direction that I don't always appreciate. I know it's a hot take, but that's why for me he's not one of the best per se. He's a good doctor, but does not talk to my sensibilities when it comes to my favorite doctors.
Okay, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but sadly now you're gonna have to sit there and listen to me read an incredibly long story, which in a way it's the doctor talking about his past. In one of the few moments we actually do get the doctor talking about their past, especially in that era of Doctor Who, before the before the greater society of Time Lords was properly introduced. And remember that in Gallifrey hadn't even been coined yet by the time that he's making this speech per se, and it was in the Time Monster when him and Joe were captured in an Atlantean dungeon, while the Master was off schmoozing with the Atlantean Queen and about to release the interdimensional being known as Kronos. And the Doctor then decides to tell Joe a story about his time back on old Gallifrey as a little boy. When all hope seems lost, he says, "I felt like that once when I was young. It was the blackest day of my life." Oh well, that's another story. I'll tell you about it one day. The point is, that day was not only my blackest, it was also my best. Well, when I was a little boy, we used to live in a house that was perched halfway up the top of a mountain. And behind our house, there sat under a tree an old man, a hermit, a monk. And he lived under a tree for half his lifetime, so they said, learned the secret of life. So when my black day came, I went and I asked him to help me. I'll never forget what it was like that up there. All bleak and cold it was. Few bare rocks with some weeds sprouting from them, and some pathetic little patches of sludgy snow. Yes, it was just gray. Gray, gray, gray. Well, the tree the old man sat under was ancient and twisted, and the old man and himself was brittle and dry as a leaf in the autumn. You know what he said? Nothing. Not a word. He just sat there silently, expressionless. He listened whilst I poured out my problems to him. I was too unhappy even for tears, I remember. And when I finished, he lifted his skeletal hand and he pointed. You know what he pointed at? A flower. One of those little weeds. It's like a daisy, it was. I looked at it for a moment, and suddenly I saw it through his eyes. It was simply glowing with light, like a perfectly cut jewel. The colors were deeper and richer than anything you could possibly imagine. Yes, it was the daisiest daisy I've ever seen. Yes, I laughed too when I heard it. So later I got up and ran down the mountain, and I found that the rocks weren't gray at all. They were red, brown, purple, and gold. And those pathetic little patches of sludgy snow, they were shining white in the sunlight. You still afraid, Joe? I'm done.
Sounds good. It's an interesting story without the context. I mean, it's okay. I don't know what to say to that.
You really don't?
I mean, it's a good story, but it doesn't. I don't know what to say to that. I'm not gonna lie. What do you have to say about it, 50?
I mean, I at this point, I was just happy we get to learn more about this character's backstory.
But okay, and this I think is what I have the issue, because now with like the 13th Doctor and knowing that a bit of the origins without revealing too much, like, was that really his backstory, or was that just him sharing wisdom and creating a story?
Based on other things from Doctor Who, especially in the novels, yes, that is part of his backstory.
Okay.
Because the monk, it's not the monk, sorry, the hermit is brought back up again. I mean, literally the next season, I think, or the
Okay.
next season right after that is where, I mean, it's revealed that it was Choji the whole time, the hermit,
Okay.
who helped him regenerate into his fourth incarnation, and the whole thing is brought back up again in the Time Worm series, which we talked about last week. I don't know if anyone watching this watched last week's episode, but we did bring up the hermit and the story of the Daisy, and the Doctor as a little kid used to come back multiple times to this hermit to try and learn more about the secrets of the universe from this hermit. And still to this day, even the Doctor is still searching for that perfect daisy that he mentioned in the story, even though certain doctors believe it's not really a daisy, but rather a rose. That's again a story in and of itself. So, yeah, apparently roses play a really big part in the Doctor's life.
I was gonna say,
You were going to say what?
there's no coincidence that the first companion was called Rose.
I mean, where do you think Russell T Davies got it from?
That's-
It was all intentional. There is no coincidence when Russell T Davies is concerned. And you
Yeah.
know what? The next companion in the 60th special is also named Rose.
Well, with Tennant coming back, that's a, you know.
It's a guarantee. And okay, so moving on, we talked about the hermit helping the Doctor regenerate into his fourth incarnation, which brings us to this legendary moment from Genesis of the Daleks.
And Best Doctor.
Okay, didn't you say that this is the best?
Okay, I mean, okay, no, not the best, but I mean, you're talking about the top, right? For me, the top three is first and fourth, and one of the modern ones.
Okay, to me, it goes Tennant, Smith, Hartnell, Pertwee, Tom Baker.
First, fourth, Tennant.
Okay, that's as long as our top our top doctors are still relatively the same. That's all we can talk about. We're really getting close to that Doctor you dislike more than the second, but right now we got to talk about arguably one of the best Doctors who lasted for a record-breaking 7 years. No, I wish more Doctors would do more than just the third year. I mean, I know technically Jodie Whittaker had 5 years, but I mean, still 3 seasons. Like, I wish more Doctors would do more past the 3-season limit.
I would have loved to see more Capaldi.
Me too.
He took time to break out of his shell, but once he hit his stride, I was like, damn, and then it finished.
Yeah, it felt like they finally had a handle on his Doctor, and the contract ended. I think he had one more season in him. I would have loved to have seen another season with Whittaker without as much interference from Chris Chibnall that we had in the previous couple of seasons. But I think those days are over. Maybe we'll get that with Ncuti Gatwa. I mean, he's a very young, fertile actor. He can carry a season, carry the show for more than 3 seasons, I think. But the guy hasn't even had his first episode yet, so let's just wait on and see on that. Now back to this moment where, obviously, it's seen from this image. This is from part 6 of Genesis of the Daleks, where the Doctor finally is about to complete his mission for the Time Lords, the thing that they sent him to do in the first place. And this speech is actually more of a open dialogue with Sarah Jane. So that's why I have both of them in the image. And I'm going to do both because, it kind of doesn't work without the other. So stand back here. Here it goes. Just touch these 2 strands together, and the Daleks are finished. Have I that right? To destroy the Daleks? You can't doubt it. Well, I do, you see. Some things could be better with the Daleks. Many future worlds will become allies just because of their fear of the Daleks. But he doesn't like that. But the final responsibility is mine, and mine alone. Listen, if someone who knew the future pointed out a child to you and told you that child would grow up totally evil, to be a ruthless dictator who will destroy millions of lives. Could you then kill that child? We're talking about the Daleks, the most evil creatures ever invented. You must destroy them. You must complete your mission for the Time Lords. Do I have the right? Simply touch one wire against the other, and that's it. The Daleks cease to exist. Hundreds of millions of people, thousands of generations can live without fear, in peace, and never even know the word Dalek. Then why wait? If it was a disease or some sort of bacteria we're destroying, you wouldn't hesitate. But if I kill, wipe out a whole intelligent life form, and I become like them, I'd be no better than the Daleks. Think of all the suffering that there'll be if you don't do it. And that was more or less when you got interrupted and the continuation of the plot happened. But
you see, this brings that paradox of like saving the universe by doing genocide, basically.
yeah,
That's why I like this Doctor a lot, because they really dive into the moral aspects of some things he has to do or is asked to do. And it's carried on future Doctors as well. But that is interesting. Like, it is pure evil, Daleks, but you do have to take on the responsibility of knowing that you are that person that will determine the future of a whole species. And we have proof in the modern Doctors that there can be some very rare, but some Daleks that can, revert back and be an ally. So if you destroy a whole civilization, you're also destroying those who are potentially able to revert back or be allies. So it is a huge responsibility, and he is reflecting on it,
Yeah, and not just the possibility of turning good. It's just that would make you just like them.
Yeah,
it's a inner conflict that is still being talked about today in modern issues around the world. Essentially, it's like, and I love that he brings up the point about the small child who grows up totally evil. It's that same old "would you kill baby Hitler" argument all over again. Like, would you be an actual child murderer in that case?
Well, you just accept it in art school and everything's solved. But there's that. You don't have to kill him if you just accept an art school.
Yeah. And also, this speech actually made its way into the modern series in the Davros two-parter with Capaldi. They literally bring back that clip, and we do get a child Davros in that episode. So, like I said, this moment has ramifications still to this day, even on Big Finish. There is, like I said, the Unbound series. They did do a full-on series of what if the Doctor actually did kill the Daleks and became the Doctor of War.
It shows out of the first 4 Doctors, he was the Doctor who was the most emotionally intelligent. Because the first one was a grump. The second one was an idiot. The third one punched before asking questions. This one, like, if it was in the hands of the third one, he would have automatically destroyed the Daleks.
Or the Ninth Doctor.
Huh?
Or the Ninth Doctor as well.
Yeah, or the Ninth Doctor. But this one stopped and says, I have the control. What are the consequences of the control? What it will do to me if I do this? And that, for me, is emotional intelligence, where you have to question your actions and the ramifications of those actions.
Yeah, and once you get into the War Doctor with John Hurt, he said on multiple occasions, both on audio and in novel form, that he regrets not taking this decision. And again, that's the War Doctor. That's the Doctor who was born out of war and rage and bloodshed, thinking that he really actually should have killed the Daleks, and some later Doctors then regretted that. Like, I don't necessarily see Capaldi making that decision so lightly.
Yeah,
because it really just shows you how incredibly shifty this character is. Most notably because he changes from one character to the other. Like, you can't necessarily view all these different Doctors as the same person, because they aren't the same person in a way. They are and they aren't in a sense. Now, is this the other Doctor you were referring to you didn't like?
Yep.
Yeah, he was bottom of my list too for many years. I would say the Big Finish ranges actually elevated him above the second, but not by that much. This doctor really takes a lot of L's, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's just I can't even remember if I finished a season with him. I can't. I just can't. His face annoys me, let alone his portrayal of the doctor.
Yeah, you and Raiko are on the same mindset with it. He was also his least favorite doctor before Jodie Whittaker came along.
Oh, he didn't. I don't get the hate. It's not Jodie's fault. It's not the character's fault.
I agree. It's just the responsibility has to fall on her because she was the face of the thing, and not.
She brought a compassion we haven't seen in a very long time. She brought this intellect and way of doing things that was interesting, just not used the right way. I'm not gonna start on a rant because
he also says that he thinks she was miscast. Like
no.
Let me explain what he means. I mean, they tried to play her up as quirky, and she should have been more serious. That's what he's saying.
Okay, not the actor. The personality of the doctor is miscast.
Personality was miscast. Yeah.
I mean, okay, I can see that a bit more as an argument. That being said, I still like that, not bubbly, but still positive type of thing on that doctor, because the actress herself is very like that too. So it did blend well. It just, for the storyline and what they were going for, he's right. What they had in mind for the actress, because that's a bit of her personality as well, I find they could have never known it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, when they cast this doctor, I don't know if you're familiar with, but after Patrick Troughton left, there was like a period of 6 months before they actually announced Jon Pertwee as the doctor, and even after they announced him, they still had some more time getting their shit together with the TV show. So when they continued the Second Doctor comics in a TV comic and whatever other publication, they continued with the Second Doctor until they announced Jon Pertwee. And when they announced Jon Pertwee, they immediately made a shift into Jon Pertwee's Doctor in the comics, not knowing at all what his character and what his personality would be like. So they tried to make him a little more like the Second Doctor, when in actuality, when he actually debuted as the karate doing action hero, he was a completely polar opposite to what they had in the comics, so they had to quickly course correct. So,
yeah, that's called the world has to move on. If you don't know anything, you still have to do the product, right? So,
yeah, true. And in case in point, they're still doing that with David Tennant as the 14th Doctor in the comics. Now, I do believe that there is some consultant going on with Russell T Davies going on, but I mean, it's not.
You have a performance to work on. Like, the other Doctor, Tennant's Doctor, how he is. He's probably gonna be different, but you can still work in the middle and still rely on what you know. In this case, it's like,
who is this guy?
Well, we know how he looks like. Hey. Let's do this.
So going back into the Fifth Doctor again, and it's another Doctor that doesn't get a lot of good speeches. And even the one of the better ones that he has is incredibly short. So I decided to go with arguably his last speech. And it's from right here, the moment where he knows he's about to die. It's from episode 3, I believe, of the Caves of Androzani, where he's about to crash land on one of the Androzani planets and find the antidote to the Spectrox toxemia that's killing him and Perry. And he's also having a bit of a conversation with Stotts, who was about to shoot him, the owner of the ship that he just hijacked, and he locked him out, and he's just going. Hold on, maybe I should put the picture up again while I'm reading the thing.
You don't have to.
Well, okay, if it makes you feel better, here we go. And he's just telling him, we'll be touching down in a couple of minutes, or more likely crashing down. You see, I'm a bit out of practice with manual landing, so if I were you, I'd find something firm to hang on to. And then Stotts tells him, open this door, Doctor, or I'll kill you. So, not a very persuasive argument, actually, Stotts, because I'm going to die soon anyway. Unless, of course, I can find the antidote. I owe it to my friend to try because I got her into this. So you see, I'm not going to let you stop me now! End credits. Yeah, it was kind of hard saying that fast while screaming at the same time.
Why does that doctor exist?
Some people like him.
Some
David
people have
Tennant
no
said is his
taste.
favorite
They're
doctor.
allowed.
What?
Some people have no taste. They're allowed.
I mean, that's David Tennant's favorite doctor. Just saying.
He's allowed.
And he also married his daughter.
Well, no wonder why he's his favorite then. Not because he's actually his favorite.
No, he was his favorite before that, and they actually acted together in Time Crash. The 10th Doctor and the 5th Doctor.
He still sucks.
I agree. You're allowed to have your opinion. Just some people like this guy. I don't know.
Some people need medication. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, I like Nyssa. I like his companion Nyssa. I think Nyssa's a really great companion. And other than that, he kind of really got the short end of the stick when it comes to companions. And we're including the guy who had the Nazi companion in this conversation.
Yeah.
But speaking of someone who also has a lot of great companions, mostly on the Big Finish side, Colin Baker, the 6th Doctor. Before we go on, what are your opinions on this Doctor? Because it's a very controversial one.
I'm neutral. I mean, I get he's angry, but I'm neutral on him. I like his performance because he goes dark sometimes, but in a reflective way. And if you make me think, even though it's a character, like a shift in emotions of what he portrays, he still makes me think, and he still makes me a lot more of a multi-dimensional character. Do I agree with half of things he says or does? No. But I think that's what makes it interesting to me, is because I don't agree with him, but he still does it in a very logical way that makes sense to him. Compared to the other one, it's just a bumbling buffoon. This one, he had reasons, and you might not agree, but you can agree that for him it was that important, and it was his way of doing things. So I'm neutral on him. There's hits and there's misses in his episodes.
Well, I love this Doctor, and the main reason I did enjoy a lot of some of his on-screen adventures, but the main reason is the Big Finish audio, because it's the same character. He just had more stories, more character development, more companions, and more of a chance to shine. Like if he hadn't gotten the shaft, very famously was fired like before his final season even made it to air, and he was so pissed off that he refused to do the regeneration episode and all that. Like, it's a whole story. We can make an entire episode about that. But if he had gotten more stories to tell, he could have been a great Doctor. Thankfully, we got it in audio form, but unfortunately, not a lot of people know about this. However, we're going to talk about one of his on-screen moments in regards to this scene right here from the Trial of a Time Lord, which is where the carpet is being pulled from, or rather the rug is being pulled from under his feet, and he realizes the conspiracy that the Time Lords basically took planet Earth in the far future and transported it into a different part of space and renamed it into a different planet, and just kept the whole thing quiet for centuries. And that's when he really finally loses it and starts yelling and screaming about what the Time Lords did in the middle of the Time Lord court. And he's also sort of confronted by Linda Bellingham's character that we talked about earlier. But this is really the main speech that he yells at the rest of the Time Lords in that court. In all my travelings throughout time and space, sorry, you said something?
No,
I thought I heard something. In all my travelings throughout the universe, I have battled against evil, against power-mad conspirators. I should have stayed here, the oldest civilization, decadent, degenerate, and rotten to the core. Power-mad conspirators, Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen. They're still in the nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really corrupt. Unseemly outbursts. If I hadn't visited Ravelox, if I hadn't thought of it, the High Council would have kept this outrage carefully buried, as presumably has done for several centuries.
And that Doctor in that speech reflects in my opinion, how the times the population felt about the government, the trade, things are hidden. Like that doctor really reflects that, and that's why I find him interesting. I get the people who don't like him, and he's not my favorite by any means because he has some really stinker episodes, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
But the character itself, a bit like the Jodie situation, the character itself is an interesting study in human, in human psychology, because this is a doctor that did everything, almost everything as asked, went through so many things, tried to represent and tried to do the best, and follow the counsel the best he can, even though there's certain lines that go against it, but still. But then reaches at a point that questions not only himself, but like, why am I doing this and why am I listening to these guys? Because we are the enemies.
Yeah.
We keep blaming everyone, which sometimes they don't do right. But who's watching the watchers? Who is controlling us? There's no one. So we can do what the hell we want, and we're not better than them. And it kind of reflects the whole whole thing we talked about with the Fourth Doctor of like genocide and the what do I have to become to do this? The Time Lords became enemies by their own choices, and the Doctor goes back in that, but not only reflects himself, but confronts it and wants and demands change. And that is the voice of the population, right? And that for me is an interesting study.
Yeah, and it was in a way it was a precursor to what the Time Lords eventually became in the Time War. How far they've fallen. Like this is what happens when the Time Lords go unchecked.
I agree.
And it's very, very relevant that it's the Doctor that says it because of things we know about this character now, of how this character technically doesn't even belong to this species, but he is arguably their best member in a way.
Yeah. It's always the most intelligent ones that always get ignored. And the stupid people in control always do what they want, And he's a prime example of that.
Yeah. In all the incarnations, and he really, at the end of the day, he was the one that had the balls to do what needed to be done to end the Time War for everyone's sake.
Agreed.
And speaking of the Time War, how about we talk about the Doctor that kind of started the whole thing? In this episode, Remembrance of the Daleks. Now, there is another speech from this episode I could have gotten, but I decided to go with this one in the coffee shop, where after the Doctor orders a bit of coffee, the coffee man asks him if he wants sugar, which then sends him on a tangent of a decision. Every great decision creates ripples, like a huge boulder dropped in a lake. The ripples merge and rebound off the banks in unforeseeable ways. The heavier the decision, the larger the waves, the more uncertain the consequences. Every great decision in the universe creates ripples.
I mean, of all the Doctors, I have to admit this is the Doctor I haven't seen one episode because it's harder to find. So I don't know. He sounds pensive. He sounds like he's a man of he's seen it all and he understands things. Everything has consequence, even with good intentions, right? So he seems like he might be worn down a bit compared to the other Doctors. It's like this is never gonna stop. I do something else gonna happen.
The way I see it is this once you reach the 7th Doctor incarnation, that's more or less the Doctor having a midlife crisis in a lot of different ways.
And it's like the Doctor who ended it all, right? Too, right? Like after him, there's no more Doctors, right?
And that's when the show got canceled, or as he calls it, when I killed Doctor Who.
Yeah, it kind of shows like it sounds depressing what he's saying, and I don't know if it's intentional or how the writers were feeling on the material too and where it was heading, or what. But maybe there's a reason why I can't find it.
I mean, the writing has gotten a bit stale in the audience views by the time his Doctor showed up. It wasn't his fault again, but just the concept has been stretched so thin at this point that they really didn't have that much new material to bring up. And the ironic thing is, very similar to Capaldi, when they finally got a handle on this character, when they finally knew exactly what they want, where they wanted this character to go, like they planned a fourth season with him. They even planned what was going to be the eighth Doctor. I'm going to reveal it right now. It was going to be Richard Griffith from the Harry Potter movies.
Okay, yeah.
Imagine Uncle Vernon as the Doctor.
That would have been interesting.
That it was all planned out, and they just didn't renew the series again, and it just stopped after 26 seasons. A legendary run by any means, by any account. Just even though they had other plans for this franchise, they never really came to pass. But I mean, this Doctor, by the end of his run, or rather, by the end of his television run, he became much more menacing and devious and mischievous and cold and calculating. This was a guy who walks into a room knowing how he's going to win in every situation, every battle. He made plans on top of plans on top of plans. He used his friends as pieces on a chessboard.
Yeah, I was going to say, he sounds like a chess player. He sounds like a chess player.
He was a master manipulator, and some of his friends, didn't quite appreciate that. So no wonder he had a Nazi companion. Am I right? Yeah, but in this scene particularly, it's him contemplating. He knows what he has to do. He has the incredible super weapon, the Hand of Omega, where he was going to use it to destroy Skaro and end the Dalek Empire once and for all. Which, very similar to this moment. It's like we went from this Doctor who was contemplating committing genocide to this Doctor who was actually contemplating planetside, which he eventually did, and he tricked Davros into destroying Skaro by his own hand, which of course later led to the Time War. So, having all this context, what say you?
He's the tragic Doctor. He's the Doctor that again is at a point that he knows what he has to do. He knows it's gonna just start stuff probably, but that's what he has to do. That's what he needs to do. He always has these dilemmas that he's always facing. No matter what happens, it happens. But the fact that he's manipulative and he needs to, he understands what he needs to do and does it, it shows me that it is a Doctor that grew up and realized that best wishes don't always happen. You have to be a man of action and sadly go into an area that you don't come back from usually. But it is a darker area, but it's a necessary area because now you're in adulthood, and not everything is rose, and you can't escape those things most of the time.
Yeah, in one of his audios, I think he was talking to Klein, the Nazi companion, where she asked him, why does he keep doing this? Why does he keep taking all these different threats and putting them out of action before they even have a chance to? I mean, even in that audio that I'm referring to, if it's the one I'm thinking of, he literally has a room in the TARDIS where he's keeping an entire galaxy hostage because there are some threats in that galaxy that he wants to keep out of harm's way. So, what right have you to take an entire galaxy and put it in a box, essentially?
But, and does he really have a right? Maybe, because again, the things he's seen, you can get burned so many times and you can lose trust so many times that you understand how the world works at one point. And sometimes there's this aha moment of, if I have to be the bad guy to do the good, it might not be a popular thing, but it still does good. You do become the villain, but sometimes becoming a villain just is realizing what is necessary to be done. And if you don't do it, who else is going to do it?
Yeah. And that's exactly what he says that when she confronts him about it. Is he says that he's doing it because he starts to feel that he's close to the end of his life, that his regeneration is right around the corner, and he doesn't think that his next incarnations will have the stomach to do what needs to be done. Little did he know that his successors fought a literal time war, but that is a story for another time. So, out of these speeches we mentioned today, any final thoughts? Any favorites that we talked about?
Fourth Doctor, hands down.
I mean, naturally, yeah, obviously.
It's almost Shakespearean in a way, you know.
Yeah. It's this era of Doctor Who was very Shakespearean. I mean, Genesis of the Daleks, one of the best episodes ever, and not the least of which is because of this moral dilemma that's been conflicting the Doctor this whole time. But we've got plenty more other Doctors with more engaging and enticing speeches to talk about next week. So why don't we wrap this up and see if we can figure out if can we count on you next week for the other speeches?
I don't even know if I can count myself to be present tomorrow for anything. So
Okay.
I'll try. Hit me up, my man. If I can, it'll be my pleasure to help you.
Cool. Now, until then, where can the good people of the interwebs find you?
Anywhere in the Benverse most of the time. I am a bit more present on Multiverse of Geekdom right now. You can see me in Titans of the Turf, which is D&D meets football meets fantasy characters of Doctor Who, to wrestling, to freaking Marvel and DC. So if you want to have a good time and geek out at the same time, go check Titans of the Turf. And I represented the team of Centurions.
Do you have Rory the Roman on your team?
No, but I have Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah. I have Shark. I have Dr. Octopus. I would have to pull up my list, but I have really interesting characters but it's all right. If you like obscure characters doing stupid things on a football field, it is your game for you.
I'm sensing an aquatic theme with your team from the.
No. I mean, I have Peacemaker too. He's my defensive captain. I got Popeye as my quarterback.
Again, aquatic theme.
Jesus Christ, I hate when you're right.
Well,
I'm going to pull up my list and I'll have to analyze it.
Okay. And as for me, you can find me every Monday on this show, The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, talking about Doctor Who, and every Thursday on Fun with Flags with my good friend Soda, where we teach each other about our respective countries. And you can also find me on my own YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek, where I do weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way to 2022. And I also do other stuff in the meantime when I have the time to. I just did a review of Across the Spider-Verse, as well as I did a ranking of all 37 songs from this year's Eurovision, so go ahead and check that out, as well as all these other channels we have on the wider Benverse at large, like Something to Talk About, Galaxy Geeks, Multiverse of Geekdom, Movie Lovers Unite, The Midnight Cinema, and A-Town Reviews, all in the loving memory of our dear departed friend, Ben Rayner. So thank you for watching if you have, and until the next time, everybody, in the words of Missy herself,
don't forget to like and subscribe.
Adieu.